Sit with me for a while. You asked about pain, why it follows us so faithfully, why it seems to arrive when we least expect it, and why it refuses to leave even when we've done everything to deserve peace. It's a question that every man at some point in his life must face alone, because sooner or later the outer achievements stop distracting you, and what remains is the quiet ache that asks to be understood. Carl Jung once wrote that there is no coming to consciousness without pain. He called pain the laboratory of transformation, not because suffering itself is noble, but because it forces us into contact with what we've been avoiding. Pain isn't here to punish you. It's here to wake you. It's not the enemy. It's the teacher. Today, I want to help you see what pain is really doing beneath the surface. We'll look at the hidden order behind suffering, the ways men avoid it, the boyhood wounds that keep it alive, and the mature stance that turns it into strength. This is not about glorifying pain or seeking it. It's about learning to listen when it speaks, because it always speaks. The question is whether you can hear it without running. 1. What pain actually is and what it isn't. Pain is not a punishment, it's feedback. It's the body's and psyche's way of signaling that something essential has been ignored. When Jung talked about neurosis or emotional suffering, he didn't mean it as a defect. He meant it as a signal of imbalance, a call to consciousness. There are two kinds of pain, clean pain and dirty pain. Clean pain is the kind that accompanies growth. It's the soreness after effort, the ache of honesty, the grief of change. Dirty pain is the kind that comes from resistance, from clinging, denial, and avoidance. One purifies, the other festers. Most men spend their lives trying to bypass both. We drown it in distraction, bury it in work, numb it with noise. But avoidance doesn't dissolve pain, it amplifies it. It becomes a hum beneath everything we do, shaping our choices, relationships, and reactions in ways we no longer notice. Pain is not the problem. The refusal to feel it is, because every feeling you suppress becomes part of your shadow, and the shadow, unintegrated, doesn't disappear. It acts out through irritability, control, or emptiness. Pain is not your enemy, it's your mirror. It shows you where your energy is blocked, where your boundaries are weak, where your values have been betrayed. Its purpose is not to break you down, but to call you back into alignment with yourself. 2. How pain appears in ordinary life. Pain doesn't always arrive as a grand tragedy. Most of the time it disguises itself as irritation, boredom, fatigue, or vague dissatisfaction. You'll feel it when you sit down at the end of the day and realize you're exhausted but not fulfilled. You'll feel it when a conversation with your partner turns defensive and the argument isn't about dishes or money, it's about not being seen. You'll feel it in the subtle moments when life seems to repeat itself, when you keep meeting the same kind of partner, facing the same type of boss, encountering the same kind of disrespect. The pattern is the pain trying to get your attention. Jung said that what you do not make conscious will return as fate. Pain is how the unconscious tries to reach you. It whispers at first, then speaks louder, and if still ignored, it eventually shouts through crisis. You might call that burnout, heartbreak, or loss, but the structure is the same. Life reorganizes itself to confront you with what you've refused to learn. The goal isn't cruelty, it's consciousness. When you feel pain, ask not, why is this happening to me, but what is this trying to reveal? Because every ache has intelligence. Every loss, every disappointment, every humiliation has within it a lesson that can't be learned through comfort. 3. The boy who learned that pain meant failure. To understand why we resist pain so much, you have to go back to childhood. Most boys are taught, directly or indirectly, that pain is a sign of weakness. Crying earns ridicule. Vulnerability earns withdrawal. Emotional pain becomes shameful, something to hide. As a result, a boy learns to equate endurance with worth. He builds armor early. He learns to push through, not to process. He becomes efficient at suppressing, but clumsy at feeling. Later, as an adult, that same man finds himself unable to name his emotions without embarrassment. He turns discomfort into anger, sadness into sarcasm, vulnerability into control. He doesn't know how to sit with pain because in his nervous system, pain still equals danger. This is why many men burn out or implode in midlife. The body can only hold unprocessed emotion for so long. What was once strength turns brittle. The man who can handle everything begins to feel nothing, and that numbness terrifies him more than pain ever did. Here lies the paradox. The pain you suppress as a boy becomes the prison you live in as a man. The only way out is through. The adult task is not to avoid suffering, but to give it meaning, to reframe it as information, not indictment. 4. Contact without collapse. Jung's approach to suffering was not stoicism, it was contact. He believed that transformation begins when we stop fleeing the thing we fear and look directly at it. Pain wants to be seen, not solved. It doesn't demand analysis. It asks for acknowledgement. To make contact with pain doesn't mean you drown in it. It means you stay present enough to witness it without identifying with it. Most men either suppress pain entirely or are consumed by it. Both are forms of avoidance. Contact means holding the tension between endurance and surrender. It's saying, this hurts, but I can remain here. I can survive the discomfort long enough to learn what it's asking of me. When a man learns to do this, his entire nervous system changes. The need to control diminishes. The fear of feeling dissolves. The old compulsions to fix, flee, or fight begin to fade. And in their place emerges something steadier, something Jung might call psyche's trust in itself. That's what it means to transform pain into wisdom. You don't transcend it, you metabolize it. 5. Containment, the discipline of suffering. Well, pain, like power, needs containment. Not suppression, not dramatization, containment. The capacity to feel deeply without being destabilized is one of the surest marks of maturity. When you can stay with your suffering long enough to understand it, you develop the quiet strength that no external success can offer. Containment is what allows pain to become knowledge instead of chaos. Jung often compared the process of individuation to the alchemical vessel, a container in which transformation happens through heat and pressure. Without the vessel, the heat destroys. Within the vessel, the same heat refines. Your awareness is that vessel. Pain provides the heat. Consciousness provides the structure. Together, they transmute suffering into understanding. That's why Jung said the task of life is not to be free from conflict, but to learn to bear it consciously. Men who lack containment either explode or implode. They turn pain into blame, or they dissolve into self-pity. The man who contains pain, however, becomes tempered. He stops fearing life's fluctuations. He learns that endurance without meaning is brutality, but endurance with awareness is transformation. 6. Avoidance and its consequences. There's a common fantasy that if we can just achieve enough, plan enough, or control enough, we can outrun pain, but no man has ever escaped it. Pain is the great equalizer. It visits kings and laborers alike. Avoidance is the most expensive addiction on earth. Every time you numb out, distract, or rationalize your way out of discomfort, you trade long-term growth for temporary relief. You become addicted to relief, not to life. When pain is avoided, it doesn't vanish, it migrates. It becomes tension in your jaw, bitterness in your tone, cynicism in your thinking. It corrodes from within, whispering that you're safe when you're actually stuck. And the tragedy is that the life you're trying to protect from pain is the very life pain is trying to give you. Because the parts of you that ache are the parts that still care, still reach, still hope. When you numb the pain, you numb the possibility too. Jung said that the thing we most need to find is always where we least want to look. Pain is that doorway. It's the threshold between the life you're living and the one you were meant to live consciously. Avoid it and you stay on repeat. Face it and you evolve. 7. The hidden intelligence of pain. Pain is not random. It's structured, almost intelligent in how it points to imbalance. It teaches boundaries when you've overgiven, humility when you've overreached, patience when you've forced outcomes, and compassion when you've judged too quickly. Every psychological pain has its own message. Grief teaches love. Shame teaches integrity. Fear teaches presence. Anger teaches boundaries. Loneliness teaches connection. When you stop labeling these as negative, you start learning from them. Jung viewed pain as psyche's way of speaking in symbols. The dream that unsettles you, the relationship that keeps breaking, the work that drains you, all of it carries information. Pain is the psyche's syntax. The goal isn't to escape it, but to translate it. And when you begin to listen, something miraculous happens. The same experiences that once felt like curses begin to reveal coherence. You start seeing the pattern behind your suffering. You realize that every heartbreak was shaping your capacity to love honestly. Every failure was refining your sense of direction. Every betrayal was teaching discernment. Pain is not chaos, it's curriculum. 8. The archetype of the wounded healer. Jung spoke often about the wounded healer, the figure who heals others not by perfection, but by having made peace with his own wounds. The wound itself becomes the channel through which empathy and wisdom flow. This is not romantic suffering. It's mature acceptance that life cannot be lived without injury, and that injury need not define you. It can deepen you. The man who has suffered consciously becomes a stabilizing presence. He doesn't overreact to others' pain because he recognizes its language. He doesn't try to fix everything, he accompanies. In this way, pain becomes sacred, not because it feels good, but because it connects you to the universal human condition. It humbles the ego and opens the heart. It teaches that strength is not the absence of vulnerability, but the courage to remain open in the presence of it. The wounded healer is not sentimental. He knows that compassion without boundaries becomes enabling, and discipline without compassion becomes cruelty. Pain teaches that balance. It gives birth to the kind of masculine maturity the world rarely models. Strong enough to feel, wise enough to stay centered, humble enough to keep learning. 9. Responsibility and the gift of witness. There's a difference between feeling pain and identifying with it. Responsibility begins when you can say, "This pain is mine, but it is not who I am." Ownership transforms suffering into strength. Victimhood amplifies it. The mature man does not use pain as an identity, he uses it as instruction. He doesn't broadcast it to be admired, he integrates it quietly. He allows it to inform his choices, his compassion, and his clarity. And yet, even though pain must be faced alone, it should not be lived alone. Healing accelerates in witness. When another man sees your suffering without flinching or fixing, something fundamental in you reorganizes. You realize you are not defective, you are simply human. This is why Jung placed such emphasis on dialogue between analyst and patient, between consciousness and the unconscious, between one man and another. Dialogue makes pain articulate, and articulation transforms isolation into understanding. The work, as always, is not perfection but reliability. Not escaping pain, but learning to carry it consciously so it no longer carries you. Pain will visit you again. It will not ask permission, and it will not arrive on schedule. It will come when something essential in you is ready to grow. When it does, remember this: pain is not the enemy. It's the teacher you keep trying to fire. It will strip away what's false, reveal what's unhealed, and demand that you stop pretending. It will dismantle your illusions of control and remind you that life cannot be managed, only participated in. When pain knocks, don't bargain, don't numb, don't dramatize. Sit down with it like an old mentor. Ask, what do you need me to see? It will always answer, but not in words. It speaks through release, through insight, through a deep quiet that follows understanding. Pain is not the proof of failure. It's the signal of transformation. The world teaches you to avoid it, to outwork it, to medicate it. Jung taught the opposite, to turn toward it, because only what is faced can be integrated, and only what is integrated can be healed. So when it comes, breathe, feel, listen. Don't rush to move past it. Move through it, because on the other side of every conscious encounter with pain is freedom, the kind that cannot be taken because it has been earned. Remember, the goal is not to be untouchable, but to be unshakable. Pain is the crucible that forges that kind of man. Be that man, not perfectly, reliably. Begin.